Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now if this is your first time here, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Now if you haven't guessed yet, in this video I'm going to be sharing with you how I made this beautiful personalized bridal jacket. I made this jacket for my best friend who is newly engaged and getting married. And if you didn't know, these jackets can range anywhere from $60 to honestly like $100. It really depends on how much you customize it, but the more customization, the more these jackets will cost you. Now, if you can get your hands on an affordable denim jacket, like something at a thrift store, or maybe something you already have at home, you can save yourself a bunch of money. The denim jacket that we used for this had a gorgeous pearl detailing all along the top of the jacket that really gave it a perfect bridal touch. Now we bought this on Amazon and we got this in just 2 days, which was incredibly handy because she wanted to wear it to an engagement dinner. So if you're needing something very time sensitive, Amazon is a great go-to. If not, using something you already have on hand is even better. And as usual, I'll be sharing timestamps down below of everything we'll be doing in this video, so you can feel free to skip ahead to the information that is most important to you. And with that said, if you're ready to turn your simple jacket into something beautiful, let's jump into the fun stuff. Okay, so we're gonna get started with our jacket, and I'm just going to flip it over so that we can measure the space for our design. So I'm gonna make sure that it's nice and flat, and then I'm gonna take out my tape measure. And first I'm gonna measure it from left to right so that I can get my width. So I know the max size that I would be able to create my design from left to right. Since the measurements can of course vary from the top and bottom of the jacket, I'm gonna go ahead and measure it at the top, in the center, and at the bottom. And I am not going to include the seams as a part of my measurements because I wanna make sure that my design does not go beyond that, and there's no chance of any of my vinyl ending up on any of the seams. And then I'm gonna do the same thing from bottom to top, except I know that I want at least 1.5 inches space open on the top and the bottom, so I'm gonna take that into account when I'm creating my measurements. And that leaves me with about 10 inches from left to right and about 9 inches from bottom to top. And now that we're good to go there, we're gonna start choosing our font for our design. So I like to head over to the website dafont.com, where I usually find a lot of different types of fonts that are completely free. And then they have all these different categories here to kind of help you find whatever font that you're looking for. And in my case, I'm looking for kind of a handwritten calligraphy or a handwritten cursive. So I'm gonna get started by looking under calligraphy. And then another cool thing that you can do is just type in the actual words you'll be using right here under preview. And then you can actually see what those different fonts will look like. And this is great because then you won't have to download any fonts unless you know for sure you wanna use them. And then another category I also like to look in is handwritten, which is actually where I found the font that we'll be using today, which is called Better Grade. And of course, if you like the font as well, you can feel free to just type it in the search bar above here and download it. And now we're gonna head over to Cricut Design Space so that we can start putting together our design. Once you're in, we're just gonna click New Project. And then from here, we're going to click on Text and then type in the text that we'll be using, which in this case will be Miss Cabrera. Of course, you can type in the word bride or really whatever it is you want to use. And then we are going to change our font to Better Grade, which is the one that I just downloaded. So I'm just going to type that right in and click on it. And then from there, your font should instantly change into your new font. And then now we're just going to resize it. So as you can see on the right side, it displays the actual inches of your design. So I'm going to make sure that I keep that within the proper measurements to make sure that the design is not cut too big. And now the number that we have going up here on the right is actually the height of our design. So that's the distance between the bottom and the top. And then I do want to see the width of the design as well. So now what I'm going to do is click on the design and just move it over so that we can see the width as well. So on the top we have about 10, and we're just going to continue to lower that until it's more or less what we're going for. And when the design is kind of big, I do like to zoom out sometimes. So as you can tell, I zoomed out to 75% just so I have a better view of the design altogether. And now that the measurements are more or less what I'm going for, I'm going to click on my design and ungroup all the elements so that from here, I can actually just move the misses and move it a little bit closer to the word Cabrera. So to do that, you'll just highlight miss, you'll group just that word alone, and then I'm just going to move it around to where I want it. And in this case, I want it just slightly to the left and not perfectly centered. And I do want the word miss a little bit closer to Cabrera, so I'm going to use this opportunity now to just move that a little bit closer to exactly where I like it. And I like how that looks right there. So now I'm just going to highlight the entire thing and I'm going to group them back together so now I can see what my measurements look like. and they're pretty much close to perfect. So from here, I'm just going to slant my design just a little bit because that's actually how I want to place it on the back of the jacket. And once you're happy with your design, you're just going to highlight your entire design. You're going to hit weld on the right side, and this is going to keep your design perfectly in place when it cuts out. The most that you can do is hit the Control key and the letter Z right after one another to undo that weld one time, but after you have already attempted to cut the design out, it will not let you go back and unweld the design. Next, to officially make your design, you're going to hit Make It, and then we are going to click Mirror, and this is extremely important when it comes to dealing with HTV, because if not, then the design will appear backward on the jacket. And then I'm just going to readjust the placement of my design just to make sure that it's not sitting too close to that red line. You want to make sure that your design does not surpass that red line at all. So I'm just going to push it over just a little bit, and that looks perfect. So from here, I'm going to press Continue, and I'm going to select my base material, which is Everyday Iron-On. And then here it gives you a quick little reminder to make sure that when you're loading your vinyl onto your mat that you're putting your shiny side down. And this is extremely important when you're dealing with iron-on vinyl. And I will show you what this means now. And from here, the next thing we need to do is load up our mat with our vinyl, and then we can begin to cut. So I'm taking out this Caesar Easy Weed Heat Transfer Vinyl, also known as HTV or iron-on vinyl. I purchased this in white from Michael's, half off. I think I got the whole roll for $10, very inexpensive. And what I'm gonna do here is cut my vinyl out about 1 to 2 inches, a little bit longer than my design, to make sure that there is plenty on that mat. So I'm gonna cut my vinyl out to about 11 inches, and then it is already 12 inches on the other side. And once you have that cut out as evenly as possible, then it's time to add it to our mat. I'm using what you would call a standard grip mat for this. I find that this is definitely the best mat to use for iron-on. Now for this part, it is super important that you grab the shiny side and you face it down. So this side would be the shiny side and this side would be the matte side. So you can definitely tell the difference. And I'm going to put the shiny side facing the mat, meaning the matte and less shiny side would be facing up. And I usually find that the easiest way to place it on the mat without having any air bubbles is just to use this little scraper. So I will definitely list the links down below for all these different tools, but you really don't need any fancy scraper for this. All you really want to do is make sure that it's nice and even. If you don't have a scraper, just make sure to use your hand and make sure to get any bit of air bubbles that you could possibly have out from under that sheet. And now that our mat is nicely loaded and it looks nice and smooth, it's time to cut out our design. So you're just going to turn on your Cricut and load the mat into your Cricut by clicking on the double arrow button. And once that's loaded, then you're gonna press the go button and let the machine do all the magic. And once your design is all cut out, then you're going to press that double-sided arrow button once more to unload the mat, and it is time to weed our project. To weed the design, I'm going to use this weeding tool, and I'm pretty much just going to poke a hole on the edge of the vinyl, and then from there we're going to remove all the excess vinyl that we don't need. Now this moment right here is exactly why I love Caesar Easy Weed. The product is just so easy to weed and really makes this process so much more seamless and easy. You should always try to be a little gentle as you're weeding, but as you can tell, I am quite rough with it and it does just fine. And of course, make sure to utilize the hook on the weeding tool to go ahead and remove all the insides of the lettering as well. And once your project is fully weeded, we're just going to remove the design off of the mat and set it aside so that we can prep our area for ironing. So the first thing you're going to want to do is preheat your iron to 305 degrees Fahrenheit. And then to protect my wooden table, I'm going to take out a towel and place that folded on top of the table. And then I'm going to put my easy press mat right on top. And then it's time to take out our jacket. And you're going to want to use your hands to lay it out as flat and as even as possible, making sure that the easy press mat is right in the center of the area that you are going to be adding the design. So before we add our design, I'm just going to iron out the area that we're going to be placing the design, and this is going to be really important for getting out any moisture that could be inside the jacket, as well as ironing out any wrinkles that could be there as well. And all of this is just going to leave us with a nice and smooth surface for our design. Next, I'm just going to adjust my jacket to make sure that my easy press mat is still in the middle of my jacket. And then we are actually going to start placing our design to make sure that we have it perfectly in the center before we actually iron it on. So I'm going to take out my tape measure once again, and I'm going to measure all the sides. And I'm going to measure the empty space on the bottom and the top of the design to make sure that they're both even, to ensure that the design is in the center of the jacket. And of course, if you see that it's uneven, just go ahead and adjust that, and then we'll jump right back in with our tape measure. And then I'm also going to do the same thing on the left and the right to make sure that there is the same amount of space in between the seams and the lettering on both sides. And once those measurements are good to go and your design is smack in the middle, I'm just going to apply some pressure with my hands and smooth out the vinyl to make sure that it's laying nice and flat on the jacket. And then I'm going to grab my easy press and place it on the top of the design for just 15 seconds. And I'm going to apply medium pressure on the design. And as you can tell, my design is bigger than the heat press itself, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and actually do this in parts. And if you're using a household iron, you'll have to follow the same process. And then I'm going to go ahead and follow the same process on the left side of the second word. And since I'm doing the name Cabrera in 2 parts, I definitely recommend trying to hold down the opposite side of the sheet that you're not ironing, just to make sure that it stays nice and flat. Now, the heat press instructions that I'm using for this project, so for example, the temperature, the amount of seconds that I'm pressing, and the pressure that I'm using, is all a part of the heat press instructions. And each vinyl company has their own recommendations of what temperature, pressure, and time you should use when pressing their vinyl. And now that I'm down to pressing my last piece, I'm just going to begin peeling to see if everything adhered perfectly to the jacket. And in this case, I can tell that it needs a little bit more time, so I'm just going to press it one more time to make sure that it's perfectly adhered. The fabric that you're pressing on is also an important factor to take into account when you're choosing your heat press instructions, but all of these companies will make their recommendations based on the fabric that you're choosing. So in this case, since I'm using denim, and denim is primarily made of cotton, when looking at the guide on the Caesar website, I looked for the proper settings for pressing cotton. I will definitely try to list the links down below for all the vinyl websites that I can find that have their heat press guidelines online, so hopefully that will be a helpful resource for you. And now it's time to peel our design once more. Now this specific vinyl allows for you to peel it hot or cold, and in this case it's still a little hot, so I'm going to begin peeling it off. And you can just check on the little parts of your design to make sure that everything's good to go, like what I'm doing right here, and our M looks perfect and our design is coming out beautiful. And this is exactly what you want it to come off nice and smooth and perfectly stuck on that jacket. Now in the future, once she has her wedding date, I will probably go ahead and add her wedding date on the sleeve or along the collar of the jacket, but there is no rush for that and we can add that as we get closer. But for now, we have a beautiful bridal jacket and a happy bride.
Beautiful.
Isn't it so pretty?
So gorgeous.
Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I truly hope that it has been super helpful to you. As usual, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to comment down below or reach out to me on Instagram. I love to connect with you guys. And that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!